At Northwestern Mutual Southern Wisconsin, they believe better conversations lead to better outcomes. They focus on a holistic financial planning process that starts with where you are right now. They design solutions that fit your specific goals and priorities and that can evolve over time. Wherever you are today, no matter what's next, they'll develop customized recommendations designed to fit your life. Visit their website or call them today. Northwestern Mutual Southern Wisconsin, a better way to money. Head north to a place with deep roots and deeper lakes, where you can speed through a frozen wonderland or glide on a quiet river, where it's so dark you can see the galaxy, the northern lights, and your future all at the same time. It's a place synonymous with up north and north woods, a vacation you'll never forget. One word, one place, Minocqua. Plan your getaway today at minocqua.org. Today on CityCast Madison. Nearly 1 in 5 Madison residents live in poverty. So what can be done to make Madison more affordable for all? One possible solution, guaranteed income. The city recently published its findings from the Madison Forward Fund program, which was the state's first ever guaranteed income research study. And its successes are carrying on in a second round of funding for Dane County residents, Madison Forward Fund 2.0, powered by the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness. We had to know more, so we sat down with the Chief Programs and Partnerships Officer for the Foundation, Dr. Michelle Robinson. And a quick heads up, we have a special bonus episode of CityCast Madison coming out today, so look out for that in your feed. It's a sponsored interview with the Minocqua Visitors Bureau, all about the hidden gems that Minocqua has to offer as an accessible vacation destination. It's a great place for you to go if you want to relax in nature and be close to modern amenities. Plus, there are many Black, women, veteran, and queer-owned businesses in the area to enjoy. So look out for that interview in our feed. It's Wednesday, May 7th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Dr. Michelle Robinson, thank you so much for making the time for us today.
Of course. Where else could I be that would be more fun than here with you to talk about guaranteed income?
Oh my God, I feel the exact same way. And we're here to talk about some pretty exciting news surrounding guaranteed income in our city. But first, before we get too far, what is guaranteed income? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I'm happy that you asked me that. So I think it's really important because I want to start by both defining guaranteed income, but also defining something that people tend to be familiar with that's related, but it's not guaranteed income. So guaranteed income really is regular unconditional cash that we give to a targeted group. And typically it's the folks who are most economically vulnerable. And the goal of guaranteed income really is around reducing poverty, stabilizing families, promoting economic mobility, particularly amongst communities that have been historically under-resourced. Now, universal basic income is also regular unconditional cash, but it goes to everyone, regardless of income, employment, or need. And the goals for those kinds of programs tend to be more around simplifying welfare systems or redistributing wealth or just kind of ensuring that there's a basic financial floor for everyone. So I like to think about guaranteed income as more like a scalpel that's very precise and equity focused, whereas UBI or universal basic income is like a hammer. It's broad, it's sweeping, but they both put money into people's hands. But GI is really around targeting support where it's most needed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making that distinction. And I'm learning a lot more about guaranteed income. And I think that, what y'all are doing, hopefully it will continue to become more of a household name like universal basic income. So the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness will be carrying the torch for the Madison Forward Fund, Wisconsin's Yay!
Yay! Woohoo!
Yeah, so that's some of the big news. Wisconsin's first ever guaranteed income fund research program. And so you're at the helm of the next chapter for what was this successful pilot of guaranteed income here in Madison. Before we talk about what's coming with the Madison Forward Fund 2.0, or what's happening now, what can you tell us about that original Madison Forward Fund program? Like, what did it look like? What were the goals that probably aligned with what you kind of just shared and the major outcomes?
Yeah, well, I was not a part of the original Madison Forward Fund, and so I don't have all of the details about the implementation. But with Madison Forward Fund 1.0, individuals were selected randomly. I want to say that they had some 3,000 plus applicants from across the city. The criteria was essentially like you had to reside in Dane County and your income had to be up to 200% of the federal poverty line based on your family size and structure. There was 155 individuals who were selected to be funded, and they were provided a $500 monthly stipend for 12 months, unrestricted, unconditional. So they got the cash. It wasn't the city's business on how they used the money. And in general, what the early findings of the impact study, because it is a randomized control trial, and I'm a social scientist by training, and so I always like to take moments to explain methodology when I have an opportunity to talk about research because it's important. But randomized control trials are important because what it allows us to control for that's really hard in human-based research, which is like the chaos of randomness, right? So it allows us to hold a bunch of stuff constant and change this one factor. And in this case, some people received this money and some people didn't receive this money, right? And then you can use that design to say, hey, well, are there differences now between these groups? And what the findings are showing is, yes, there were. And so some of the early findings are showing things like what previous similar guaranteed income programs have shown. Most people are spending their money on their basic needs, right? Like housing, food, retail types of things. Some people are paying off debt. But there was also this interesting finding for the Madison study that's suggesting that individuals who receive the funds actually worked more. And that's really important because there is unfortunately this really weird sort of debate around guaranteed income that's honestly really rooted in bias, particularly towards people who are seen as the likely beneficiaries of a guaranteed income program, Black and brown people, single mothers, and poor people across race, right? There's this assumption or this assertion that's not really rooted in science or evidence that guaranteed income disincentivizes work, that at the end of the day, the only valuable way in which a person is earning a dollar is through work outside of the home, right? And that if people aren't doing that type of work, then something's wrong with them. But what we're actually seeing in the studies are that people are using these dollars to do things like get advanced education or go back to school and get a certification. One particular study, the open research study, we're seeing that more than likely people tend to work more. With the open research study, if a person was 30 years older or partnered, if they received the benefit, they actually worked more. People who have used the open research study findings to say that it shows that people work less are actually misinterpreting the findings. What they actually showed is that those people who did work less kind of represented two groups. The first group were people who were mostly single parents. What happened is, yes, they decreased their work because they went from working 2 jobs to 1 job or from 3 jobs to working 2 jobs.
Right. It's one of the oldest misconceptions in the book that, people who need government assistance or assistance in any way are like lazy.
Yes.
Or that they don't want to be working.
Yes.
When what should be the most widely known thing is that it's very expensive to be poor. It's very expensive to be on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum. And in fact, you can be disincentivized from working without the money because you might have to be caretaking. Like the degrees of situations that completely upend the misconception that people getting this money would be outside of it just literally being brought forth from the data, from the research that, we could have guessed that before going in.
Unfortunately, we're still having this conversation, right? Like these ideas aren't new. The first conception of a guaranteed income type program actually was in like 1797 by freaking Thomas Paine, of all people,
Wow.
who is a founder of our nation and a revolutionary. He actually proposed a system of payments to young adults that would be funded by tax from landowners. These are not new ideas. These are ideas that have existed in our country from some of our earliest days. The thing is that what we're really struggling with, I think, is the fact that we have come to a place where we feel that some types of people are deserving of these kinds of investments, but other people are not deserving of this. And specifically, when we're thinking about the present moment, there are these kind of bills that are circulating in different states, including our own, trying to restrict GI programs through funding mechanisms and things of that sort. What's really frustrating about this is that the backlash is really rooted in its hypocrisy. Like, we are pushing to ban local guaranteed income pilots like the Madison Forward Fund while turning around and supporting all kinds of public subsidies. We support tax breaks for corporations. We incentivize and support incentives for private developers, even farm subsidies, right? These are all types of GI programs. And now let me be clear, because I am pro small and family farmers. Those are my people. I'm a descendant of a sharecropper. I'm from farm people. I'm from rural people. And farming is essential work, right? But at the same time, we shouldn't pretend that we aren't already choosing to invest public dollars in people and industries that we believe in.
Yeah. And I mean, and that goes back historically as well. 40 acres and a mule. Actually, a lot of people got that. I mean, we don't have to go that far back, but like, this is an ongoing situation where some people get support from the government and it's described a certain way, and other groups are somehow parasitic, that it's a sort of, negative. But I did want to touch on a point that you shared. The reason we met you, Michelle, was at the celebration. There was an event that marked the culmination of this fund's research where the research outcomes were shared. That was over at the Black Economic Hub on South Park, and it was really lovely. You were one of the speakers. And I just want to highlight, we heard from a fund recipient who shared her story of how the financial support helped her go from living in her car with her 2 kids to helping secure a job and getting her degree this year. Really massive, an exact example of how only $500 can be a game changer for helping people get work.
Yes. If your goal is to help people get work, if your goal is to help people get out of poverty, if your goal is any of those things to facilitate economic mobility, then there's just guaranteed income makes sense. It makes sense theoretically, and it makes sense empirically when you look at the facts and the data that comes out of programs and studies.
Yeah. And, at the event, the fund announcement was the fact that the fund would be continuing, overseen by you all at the Foundation for Black Women Wellness. Michelle, can we jump to where we're at now? Where does the Forward Fund 2.0 currently stand?
Yeah, so the Forward Fund 2.0 has been in the works at the foundation since probably the end of 2023, when the city of Madison first approached foundation about possibility of administering the program. We actually kicked off recruitment for this second round late last year, so October, I want to believe. And eligibility was restricted this time to clients of our maternal and child health programs. And we have a couple of them, our Saving Our Babies initiative, our Reach for Wellness initiative. And these are initiatives that essentially allow clients of our organization to go through social determinants of health screens, but also to be connected with doulas during their pregnancy to support their perinatal and their postnatal journey. And so these individuals, whether they were currently pregnant or they had a child up to 3 years old, were essentially invited to apply. We had 202 invited MCH clients. We had 155 families that actually applied. And we had a couple of other sort of eligibility criteria. We paralleled the city in the sense of having the income at or below 200% of the federal poverty line. The other 2 pieces that make our program a bit different from the city is that we actually wanted to pair our folks up with a community health worker. And our program officially kicked off with first payments on March 31st of this year. It was the day after my birthday. And so as a person who's been like doing guaranteed income advocacy for a decade and then to be turning 41 and to have this, it was like a birthday gift to me. It was a very special day. I don't know what more joy you can get from that. And like one of the first stories we heard when our community health workers, a client reached out to them out of excitement. They were like, I got my first payment and I paid out my debt. And like, I applaud them for paying off their debt. I can't say that when I was in my 20s, I don't know the age of this particular individual, but they're probably on average, they're younger than me. I would not say that I would have jumped to thinking to pay off my debt, right? Like these folks are strategic, they're smart, and like there's the idea of where they are and then where they want to be and where they could be if they had just have what they need. And so it's such an exciting time. We have 42 families, so our pilot is smaller than the cities. One of the things I'm really hoping is that this program can grow and so that we can serve more families in the future. The need is much greater than the resources that we have. And frankly, I can share that like there were so many heartbreaking stories in the application data when to the question of like, why are you applying for this? You know, stories about folks experiencing domestic violence and needing this financial support to be able to break free from those situations. Folks who are saying like, I'm behind on my rent and me and my kids are going to be evicted if I can't figure out how to meet this gap. Folks who are just saying it's hard. The world is hard. It's hard to make sure my child is fed, that they have diapers, that they have the things that they need.
And I think it's really tremendous, you know, even going back to the city's project, like you said, 3,000 people applied for it for like 155 spots. And you're saying the need far outweighs the resources at this time.
Way outweighs. And when you think about it, like there's some 189 million people in the United States that are either at or near poverty. That's like 56% of the population, right? That's at that scale. So being poor or being near poverty or economically disadvantaged is the norm. Like
it's the majority.
It's the majority of people. So yes, the majority of people in our county, in our city, probably could benefit from a guaranteed income type program.
Are you ready to cement your reputation as the best gift giver this Mother's Day? Why not give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame with preloaded family photos? There are a million reasons to love Aura frames, but let me just share a few. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, and it's easy to see why. There's unlimited storage, so you can add as many photos, videos, and funny memes as your heart's desire. Plus, photos look like real prints with meticulously calibrated high resolution. And it's so simple to set up. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off, plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's AURA frames.com. Promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This version with y'all is specifically for Black mothers or pregnant people. Why focus on these specific families?
Yeah. And so we decided to focus on guaranteed income with our maternal and child health population for a couple of reasons. It really is around kind of this 2-generation approach, right? So we know that at the earliest years beginning in pregnancy, that's some of the most critical time that kids are developing their sort of for their lifelong journey, right? Not just immediately, like this is starting to build the building blocks for what's going to happen to you at 67. So, you know, we know that financial stress during pregnancy and early parenting really increases the risk of poor birth outcomes, maternal health and mental health challenges, and long-term developmental delays in kids. these are all core work goals for us as the foundation, right? Like our maternal child health work is really in response to these entrenched, long-standing maternal child health disparities that has characterized our county for too long, right? And so we know that cash is one of the most effective tools that we can provide someone to address this. It gives people flexibility to meet their real needs, regardless of what that might end up being in the time. And we know from this research that it does work. It does improve mental health. It does reduce stress. It does help parents create more stable home environments. And so the last thing I'll just share about this is our maternal child health work was really catalyzed by our Saving Our Babies report that was a product of our founders, Lisa Payton and Annette Miller from Equity by Design, collaborating, doing engagement across Dane County with Black women and Black families, interviewing some 300 folks. And one of the things that they said was when we think about low infant birth weight and this disparity between Black and white children in our county, what's driving it? One of the top things that came up, and this was like 7 years ago, was economic disadvantage and economic insecurity. So what a powerful moment that as we are doing the systems change work with our partners, the Dane County Health Council, we're thinking about how do we re-envision maternal child health and how do we bring community and clinic together. We now have, in a limited way, a tool to also provide some economic support and social support to those families. And so I'm really excited to see how that is going to sort of ensure that these families are on a strong starting point and that their outcomes are going to reflect that and as a result.
Before your current role, you were with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and before that, you were with the Department of Children and Families and a member of the Race to Equity Project with the nonprofit Kids Forward. You really hold a holistic view of needs within our community. What do you think guaranteed income offers that other services aren't providing?
It offers people literally the financial tool that they need. At the end of the day, if a person can only increase their income so much, right? By getting a higher paid job, by working more hours. And though there's real limits to that. And so it makes it more challenging when the main driver of the stress or the instability is just needing extra cash. And it's very hard outside of those systems. So this is a program that gives folks the cash that they need to address some of their financial gaps. And the added benefit is that they also get to work with a community health worker who works with them and walks alongside them and says, hey, what are you trying to accomplish because you are in this program? Where do you want to see yourself in 12 months? And like, how can we work together to help collaborate on connecting the dots so you can get to that goal or get as close to that goal as possible?
You know, I'm hearing about this work. It brings up all of my experiences in my childhood where I know I personally grew up on food stamps and got Christmas presents from like the Salvation Army, and I could go on and on. But I was in this group, and we just didn't always have what we needed. And so I know what $500 can mean for a family. And for some people, $500, it doesn't seem like that much, but it can be make or break. And, you shared a little bit at the event, but can you talk about if you have like a personal connection to this work?
Yeah, I mean, my personal connection is the fact that I grew up poor, and it's something that I'm still grappling with because it's how you understand your context as a kid versus how you understand your reality as an adult, right? And for me, it really was realizing like we went without, there were times it was common for me to be hungry, like to not have access to food, to not have access to deodorant, like things that are about not just what I need nutritionally, but to be a human being and live with dignity and walk through the world with dignity. I don't know why I struggle with understanding why it is a debate that we should have a standard of living that everyone can exist with dignity, right? Guaranteed income is a program that would have been transformative for us. My mom had to exit the workforce because she had an autoimmune disease. She was in chronic pain. She had a disability. And unfortunately, she did try to apply for disability. She wasn't accepted. And, that's a whole other story to talk about as far as both the ways in which that system is super important and essential and where it needs to be improved. But because she couldn't tap that system, my father earned too much money. So we were right above. We were poor, but not that poor. So we couldn't qualify for food stamps. So the gap was just a gap. There was not anything to meet the need. And, unfortunately, it does come with the culture of shame. It comes with this quietness. So whereas, perhaps you could have tapped into some institutional supports, those aren't always available if you're not able to sort of get past your own sort of personal shame, a shame that you shouldn't have, right? Like, this world is hard. I was talking to my husband earlier about, like, when you really think about the economic system that we're working in, GI makes a ton of sense. When economists talk about our market, they often talk about this thing called full employment. The simple way to think about it is that it means that everyone who wants a job and is able to work can find one, but only to the point where we're not triggering inflation. And why I say that is that what it means is that there's unemployment. Full employment means there's unemployment. That means people don't work. People can't work, because if everybody worked, then we would trigger inflation. And so the reality is that there are people who are going to not be able to work regardless. That is called like a healthy economy or healthy employment. And it's like people should be, switching jobs, graduating, moving, taking care of family. But the thing is this. We know increasingly in our kind of modern economy that that's not mostly what we're seeing in unemployment. We're seeing people who are having to take jobs that are lower paid and at a lower skill with higher credentials and experience. Like, we're not talking about a market that the outcomes are just about skills gaps and things like that. We're talking about like a market that's not working for most people. And so when you have a situation where if the only way one can get income outside of being born into wealth is through work, and you're telling us that millions of people, right? Like, millions of people. I think the unemployment rate right now is like, 4.2% or something like that. It's 340 million people in the US. Like, it's a lot of people. We're talking about millions of people who are going to be poor by design because our system rests on that. So what is our responsibility to ensure that because of the sacrifice we're forcing upon them, that there's a floor, that there's some basic standard, that we're not going to allow them to fall below?
Mm. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know why it's a dream in one of the wealthiest nations in the history of the earth. And yeah, I'm really loving that econ lesson, honestly. Yeah, I was just thinking about, it's like my mom, also physically disabled, like had reasons why she could not work, tried to work.
Yeah, my mom was a domestic. I think I shared. My mom was a cafeteria lady at my school. So when she moved from being a sharecropper as a kid, graduated high school, she moved to Houston and started cleaning rooms in the hotels in downtown, and then eventually got married and started having kids. And then she was a cafeteria lady, and I loved it. And then she had to exit workforce, but she was still working at home. My mom stayed busy. She was in pain, but we lived on a micro farm. We had chickens, we had ducks. Like there was animals to care for. There was a house to keep clean. There was food to cook. Like she worked, right? She was working in the house. Caretaking is work. It's real work. It's some of the most important work on the planet, and is devalued, and it largely happens unpaid.
Labor does not just mean paid work, and that's all a part of this conversation. And I think we're getting worked up because we know that there is a huge body of people that are critics of GI, of guaranteed income, and it's like, But
what is your solution? What is your solution given the economic structure? Don't tell me this theoretical situation that doesn't exist. Speak to me about how are you offering solutions that address that some people are going to be really, really poor. And that means something in this country. That means that they're going to go without having their basic needs met. How are you answering to the fact that they deserve something from the rest of us for that sacrifice? And what are those solutions?
Absolutely. Well, Michelle, before we let you go, I know we could talk forever, but before we let you go, what does success for this program look like for you?
Ooh, I think it really is that the goals that each participant wants to accomplish for themselves, the more of them that get to that goal, the more successful I will feel about this program.
There you go. Well, we'll have to follow up.
Yes.
Follow up with you on how it goes. But this is such a pleasure. And thank you for all of the work that you do and coming on the show to kind of explain to us this, innovative in a way, like you said, it was pitched in 1700s.
Yes.
But here we are in 2025 trying to make it work, and you're at the helm of that. So,
yes.
Dr. Robinson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Bianca.
That's Dr. Michelle Robinson, the Chief Programs and Partnerships Officer for the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness. If you want to learn more about the city's original Madison Ford Fund findings or more about Madison Ford Fund 2.0, head to our show notes for some links. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. I want to take a moment to thank our new CityCast Madison neighbors. You're a part of the group that helped us get through the last stretch of our spring membership goal, so thank you so much. Thank you to Blake M., Crystal F., Martha S., John M., Abby B., Emily H., Elizabeth W., and Allison G. We're so glad you joined us. Thank you for the support and the hugest welcome to the neighborhood. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here. We love making this podcast and the Madison Minutes newsletter for you. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with someone who actively works to make the world a more economically just place, or just a generally better place to live? And hey, one last reminder to look out for today's CityCast Madison sponsored interview with the Minocqua Visitors Bureau. It's a super fun conversation, and here's a taste.
It is really a quintessential vacation area. I romanticize it quite a bit.
As you should.
Of course. I mean, it's a gorgeous location, but I think about movies like The Great Outdoors and Dirty Dancing and that resort culture, from the 30s and 40s. We still have all of that here with a touch of a whole lot of other things.
Look out for that interview in our feed today. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until next time, take good care.